Very glad to be here. You know my name. I'm a DevRel at Vaadin, and this very long, obnoxious title, Full Stack from the Back, Building for the Web with Java. That's what we're talking about today, but what the heck does all that mean? So let's start here. A couple of people you may or may not know. So the guy in the dark colored shirt there, he's Marcus Hellberg, Vice President of Developer Advocacy at Vaadin. Also my boss, so if you happen to know him, let him know I did a good job. And by the way, this is going to be a very interactive session, even though there's a whopping dozen of us or so. So when I say different questions and things, feel free just to shout out answers. You just might win a shirt. So the guy in the white shirt, anybody know him? Can you hear your name? Josh Long, thank you, good. Spring Developer Advocate, Vaadin Champion, Java Champion, all around pretty decent guy. This picture is taken from the Vaadin Create Conference in Frankfurt, Germany. And they co-presented together because Spring and Vaadin and Java, it's like they all work very well together. But in the process of Josh's presentation, he made an interesting comment. If you ever heard his talks, you may have heard him say this before. He said, and I quote, "There's never been a better time to be a Java developer and a Spring developer." And he gave his own reasons based on performance, based on speed, compatibility with being cloud native, his list of things. But after his talk, I thought about it and I was like, he's really right. There's never been a better time to be a Java developer and Spring developer because for one thing, today's Java is not your dad's Java or granddad or grandmother's Java. It's very different. It's been modernized. We just saw from Chandra and Rodrigo that it's a modern tool, right? It's been made to work with less verbosity, be quicker, be applicable to so many applications. And the same with Spring, seeing all of the releases come out. I like looking at the JEP sometime like a kid in a candy store, like what's coming out next, what we're going to get access to. So I agree with this statement. But Josh made another statement that I found kind of curious. We caught this on video. Josh also said, when it comes to Vaadin, Vaadin makes me drunk with power. The UI no longer frustrates me. I was like, okay, I'm catching that one. Because we're talking about Vaadin, which is Java-based, and the UI. And whenever I travel around the country giving these presentations, whenever I talk to people about Java and front end or Java and the UI, I typically get one of two reactions. Number one is Java on the front end, hell no, or some iteration of that. Or Java on the front end, yeah, we used to do that way back in the day. Nobody does that anymore. So let's handle those two objections right from the beginning here. Let's handle the nobody does that. So who is this? Please feel free to just yell it out loud. Duke, thank you. What is Duke? Duke is the Java mascot. He's the Java mascot, right? That's how we accept him now. But what was Duke originally? Duke originally was a small animated character that appeared on a curious mobile device that had a beautiful UI for the time. I think it had a touch screen, it had drag and drop capabilities, and it was a cute little animated figure that was like a software agent to work with you as you interacted with this device. What was the name of the device? Whoever knows this gets the t-shirt. Google it. Google it. Y'all about to fall asleep on me. It's not lunchtime yet. Wake up. Google it. What was the device that Duke first appeared on before he was the mascot for all of Java? He was the mascot. He was the animated character for one particular device. Definitely not the iPod. It's very easy to Google. You can use your phones. You guys look at me like, I don't want to use my phone. Use your phone. This isn't church. It's okay. Someone's going to say it's a device. It's a device. Duke was originally the animated character on what device? Cue Jeopardy music. Star 7, catch sir. Everybody give him a hand. Everybody give him a hand. Thank you. Star 7, an innovative device. I'm not sure whatever happened to the Star 7. It didn't quite make it past production. But this was a mobile device in the early 90s with a touch screen, with a drag and drop, with a beautiful UI, a beautiful front end, and that front end was built with and enhanced with Java. From the very earliest incarnations of Java, Java has been working on the front end. Moreover, it was so early of an incarnation of Java that it was actually before Java was called Java. It was called Oak, named after the oak tree that was outside of James Gosling's office there at Sun Microsystems. Raise your hand if you just learned something. Awesome. So, what is my point? Java has been used on the front end since the history of Java. You may or may not know that, but that is very true. But what about this other idea? And that's the device right there. That's the Star 7. By the way, Duke was released in 95. Cute little animated character to help you with your UI. An interesting similar character appeared in 1996 from Microsoft called Clippy. Who remembers Clippy? Duke was first. Shout out to Java. All right, so that brings me to this curious symbol, which hopefully you can see it. I know it's dark. It's a reindeer, same as on my shirt here. The reindeer is native. Reindeers are real, by the way. They don't fly, they are real. They're native to Finland and that part of Western and Northern Europe. Finland is also the home of our company, Vaadin, and we've kind of taken on this whole reindeer motif, reindeer culture. But where does Vaadin come into play, and what does it do for you as a Java thing? What is it? Because I was on a podcast 2 weeks ago, and they said, all right, Vaadin is just Java on the front end. We have that, but it's more than that. And even at the, oh my God, which conference was it? No, at the the Dallas Jug. Went to the Dallas Jug about a month ago. They're like, all right, this is Vaadin, a full stack platform for Java, or full stack framework for Java. They said framework. We have that, but it's more than that. So what do you get when you talk about Vaadin? I want you to think about this right here. If you forget everything else that I say, and hopefully you won't, Java should be the home for every Java developer. It should be just like home base. If that's your jam, if you do Java on a day-to-day basis, or if you have that as part of your tool set, it should just be home. Nice house, by the way. Specifically, if you're building business applications that live on the web. Business applications, data-rich, not just cute websites. There's other things that optimize for that, but actual applications, internal tools, dashboards, full SaaS applications, and Java is your jam, the first place you should check is Vaadin. Why? Here's what you get. You get modernization tools. We have part of our enterprise software and enterprise offerings, tools to get you from Java 6, Java 7, Java 8, Java Swing, anything old to get you modernized in a matter of minutes. We have modernization tools in this ecosystem. We have design tools. We literally just came out with a new tool that can take a Figma design, you import it into your UI, and it will generate the Java code for you from a design. This is part of the ecosystem. We have web components. Our web components are amazing. They're like the building blocks of everything that we do to build for the web. A robust set of about 50 web components, from buttons to text fields to all sorts of things. And if you played with Swing back in the day, you might be somewhat familiar, but these are written in Java. They're modern, they're responsive, a robust set of web components. And in addition to that, we have, because most of our core offerings are open source and free, we have a thing called the add-on directory where there's probably 1,000 additional components for any particular use case you can come up with. Oftentimes we'll have maybe one of our specialized components will be for a fee. People will say, no, we'll just build it ourselves, and they'll get together as a community, and that's available to you open and free in the add-on directory. With those web components, we have the first framework I want to talk about we offer is called Flow. That is 100% full stack development with all Java. The logic side and the presentation side. I don't want to say front end and back end per se, because Java is always back end, it's on the JVM, but we're going to generate that front end code, right? Generate the HTML that's going to be displayed in the browser from that back-end language. You just write it all in Java. And I'm going to show you an example in just a little bit. We have accessibility tools to make sure you're doing everything accessible with the IBM accessibility. We have testing tools, Vaadin Test Bench to do your UI tests, both unit tests and integration tests. We have that toolage for you. In this ecosystem, we have a brand new AI code assistant, our own Copilot, where you can code and it will see it in the UI, or you can do drag and drop in the UI and it will generate code in your editor, specifically IntelliJ. There is internalization tools. There's a second framework called Hilla, which is a meta framework, right? It's built on other tools. So imagine Spring Boot architecture with a React front end, and it's bundled together in a single project. Now you might work somewhere where you already have React and Spring Boot. You will wonder, well, why do I need this? This has been configured to handle the communication layer for you. It literally abstracts it away. And I'm going to show you an example of that. This is just a teaser. We also have deployment and automation tools. We just came out with our control center to help you do your deployments through your Kubernetes clusters. An active community on our forum. Overall, Vaadin is what you see at the top there, a full stack platform. Not just a framework, but an entire platform. Like I said, a home for Java developers. So in terms of a workflow, and this is a little more theory than I usually do because of the sake of time. If you think about workflow, you start here with business requirements. When I worked at FedEx, we always called it the business, and you can't just say it, you have to do your hand like that, like, oh yeah, the business. Like they're over there, the business, and we're the developers and the architects, but the business. But we need them. kind of. So it starts with business requirements. Hey, can you guys make a blank? And they send those requirements over to a team. Now, imagine it's a full stack Java team. A full stack Java team, that's what they do. Their core language and ecosystem is Java. What we're saying is we can help you build that app, whether it's an internal tool, SaaS application, we can help you build that with this right here. And this is a simplified version of that former slide. You can take the Figma design or legacy Java. You can use the modernization toolkit if you need to. Use our AI coding assistant, our two different frameworks, Flow or Hilla. I'll show you which one to use and when. A robust set of web components, control center to get it out the door. All packaged into home base. And I'm even looking at now individual Java developers. I met one at Connect Tech in Atlanta. He heard a presentation. He's a Java developer. He hates dealing with front end, but he has to because people don't like to work in the terminal unless they're developers. And he had a client, and within the next conference, he saw me at Connect Tech. He saw me again at DevNexus, which also is in Atlanta. He had built a full stack application for a client, sold it to him. It was a login system, just some little, I don't know, warehouse or whatever. But he sold a complete application, coded the whole thing front to back in Java, and they love it. And so he loves it. So this stuff does work. Next slide, Control Center. I mentioned the Control Center. I'm just going to fly through this, but it's brand new. I want to make sure I highlight it. Our Control Center does offer deployment options, managing options for Kubernetes clusters, monitoring for health, security, performance, logging, as well as user management and everything you see right there. So when do you choose what? The left side is traditional. This is what you're used to. This is what I'm used to. This is what we did at FedEx, right? You might have components, you might not, but you have a front end that's very often React or Angular. You have some back-end logic that's happening, some service layer, there's a data layer, of course, as well. But in order for these to work together, we need this communication layer. I have a whole talk I'm going to do on this in Dallas next month at Commit Your Code. But you have to have those connected in some way. Right? So that's the most control. That's the most granular level of control that we're most used to, but it's not that efficient. If you get a little more efficient, we see Next.js, which is a full stack approach. And then here we come to the two Vaadin offerings. These are the two offerings that we have. Number one called Hilla, Spring Boot backend, React front end, still built with the same components. And the Hilla framework will connect these two for you. I'm going to show you that. I know I keep saying it kind of in an etheric way. Stay with me. And then finally, if you need to be the most productive, if you need the least control but the most productive, get it done the quickest, our option is Vaadin Flow. The whole thing is just Java, front to back, top to bottom. All right, so that's my cue to go to code. I have 14 minutes left. And by the way, I'm very easy to access online, so any questions, I'm going to ask y'all just to table them for either after this session or just catch me online because I think I'm the last session before lunch. And y'all are not going to have people beating me up because they couldn't get to their turkey sandwich. So just hold tight on the questions, and we're going to get started here. So how you start a Vaadin app. If you wanted to start today, if you wanted to go home because you have a project in mind, you're a Java whiz, front end is like I'll do React if I have to, or I'll do Angular if I have to. How would you get started? Start.spring.io. You've been here 1,000 times. You'll select your metadata as appropriate. You go to dependencies and simply add Vaadin. We do have an official dependency with the Spring initializer. You'll start it right there. You might want to add dev tools if you want to, but you could also add your Spring data. You would add all your Spring things, your Spring modules, as you normally would. But the main thing you want to add right there is Vaadin. Now, we also have our own initializer. I'm going to show it to you just because I should. And it looks like this, where you can start a project in a drag and drop way. Okay, choose the theme, you can start it that way, or you can start it here, which is similar to the initializer, where you'll choose your architecture here, whether you're going to use Flow or Maven or Spring Boot. You choose your framework, whether it's Flow or Hilla. You see we do have lit support as well. The language can be Java or Kotlin, technically. The build tool can be Maven or Gradle. I'm a Maven guy. And then architecture can be any of the ones down there, and that will get your starter project. When you generate the starter project, this is how it looks. And I've added a minimal amount of code here. So this will be Hello World in a Vaadin Flow application. That is way too small. Better? All right, cool. So here's Hello World. Not much here, but here's what I want you to be impressed by. In this single Java class, no React, no Angular, no front end, no HTML, no CSS, anything. I have the routing where this view is going to show up. I have a very regular Java class, like you've done 1,000 times. Public class home view. It extends some curious thing called vertical layout. Vertical layout is a Vaadin component. that is going to organize your components vertically. Accordingly, we have a horizontal layout, we have a app layout, form layout, lots of different layouts to automatically position your components for you. Within our constructor here, we're going to add an H1, which you're thinking, wait a minute, you said no HTML. This is a Vaadin component. Most of your popular Vaadin HTML elements, we have an equivalent Vaadin component. So you don't have to leave context mentally and go to my HTML file and do this, then come back to my Java file. You do the whole thing right here. We're adding a new H1, we're adding a new paragraph, that's also a component, and we're adding these two strings. This add method is going to add it to the constructor, and there's not many imports. I will show it to you though, so you know there's nothing up my sleeve. We imported the components, H1, paragraph, layout, and the route. We're going to go ahead and hit our play button. And this is going to generate on my local host here. The internet will cooperate with me. It's been good so far. Let's see. Yep, there we go. So welcome to your new application. So that's just a string. So cool. So no big deal there. Only thing I want you to be impressed by here is there is no HTML file. We're generating from the back, full stack from the back. We're generating from the back to the browser, basically using the browser like a thin client, letting it know what should be displayed and where. On that initial page load, you get just the lazy loaded HTML that you absolutely have to have. And then with every user interaction, that gets sent to the JVM and you get updates sent from the back to the front, from the back to the front. Let's look at something else slightly more impressive. Let me open up my combo app. Take off my glasses so I can see. Alrighty. All right, so source main Java views. All right, so again, so nothing up my sleeve. So when you're building a Vaadin Flow app, again, you do all the normal Java things or Spring things that you would normally do. So in this case, I've pre-written a contact service, a CRUD service. There's nothing Vaadin specific about those, so I'm just going to run through that. Push service as well. I just want you to see there's no heavy lifting happening here from the UI perspective. We also have our data model, so I have a contact data model, repo just extending JPA repository, and a database initializer because I needed some data to work with for my demo, and I know that's cutting off because I made it so big. Hold on a second. Boom, boom. That's still visible? Is that okay? I'll take that as a yes. All right, awesome. So from there, let's look at what Vaadin is going to do for us. Let me go to my grid. All right, very similar to the hello world. Hold on. Very similar to the hello world. I've got my class is called Flow Grid here. In this case, it's going to route to /flow-grids. My routing is taken care of. In my constructor, I'm going to take the contact repo. So that's a repo class, just like you would normally do. That's where I'm getting access to my data. Now here's where it gets interesting. I'm going to add a H2, no big deal there. Var grid. How often do you need a grid in internal applications and tools? All the time. We have a component called grid that gives you a grid out of the box. No heavy lifting whatsoever. All it needs to know is what data model am I using. So in this case, I'm using the contact model. In order to add columns from my grid, I'll simply use the add column method. I can add as many of those as I need to. It knows exactly where to get each piece of information from because it's going to go to that contact model and use the getters, because I'm on the back end, the getters and setters. It's going to use the getters from that model in order to get the data. I'll set my header names. And then in this case, so I could have done either method here. So this is just setting the items. This will work, but this also works as well because we can use the Vaadin Spring Data Helper to make this lazy loaded. It's going way off the screen because everything is so big, but that's using that Spring lazy loading, so I can query that and just stream it in case you had like thousands and thousands. You don't want it to make that first hit and actually try to pull all the data at once. You want to stream it continually. So that page, let's run this application real quick. Close that, close that, close that. That is at Flow Grid, I believe. So that's how that looks. That's the grid. All right, let's do one more, then we're going to go to the Hilla side. I have 7 minutes. Let's do one more. So I did the grid. I don't want to do layouts. What do I want to do? Actually, I'll take that back. Let's just go straight to the Hilla side. So full stack Java, we call it Flow. It's just that simple. We have a demo that I can show you real quick. star pass. This built 100% in Java. The code's not available yet. We're still working on tweaking some things, but people like to say, well, what does it look like full blown? Like, what can this actually do? And it can do a lot. So this application here is built 100% in Java with our Flow framework. So this is an imaginary interplanetary booking application, but the elements that it uses are things that you use all the time in the tools, in the dashboards, in the SaaS apps that you make. So having a list of users, having a list of locations and having different columns, being able to search, being able to sort. If you go over here to the booking side, you can see a nice list here, nice professional clean. Our app comes with an internal theme called Lumo, L-U-M-O, for easy styling. It has its own classes and things for that. You'll do all the styling in Java. But again, this is in the browser, so if you're just dead set on using your own CSS, you can absolutely do that as well. But yeah, you see the upcoming here. We have all these different flights to different places in outer space, a nice list of customers. I think we even have a support page. This is a very common use case, having a support page, having messages coming up, being able to get into the message. This entire app you're looking for right now is living and working on Vaadin Flow. That being said, earlier I mentioned React, and I mentioned the fact that, hold on, I don't want that one, I wanted this one. I mentioned the fact that we also have a meta framework called Hilla that combines Spring Boot and TypeScript React in a single project. We'll look at a quick example of that. CRUD. No, I don't want that one. Actually, this will work as well. So let's look at this. This is a, how many React people do we have? Even a little bit. One or two? All right, cool. So basic functional component here. What is relevant about this that I want you to see? I'm returning something called AutoCRUD, which is one of our components. Most all of the components that you'll learn on the Flow side, the Java side, we have an equivalent on the TypeScript side. So I want to just return that component, and I want it to reference CRUD service. Remember we looked at CRUD service earlier? That's what I wanted to reference in terms of the methods. The model I want to use is the contact model, and I got a class name here for styling purposes. That code right there, that's like 4 or 5 lines of code, not including the imports. That code right there is this grid, which I think is a pretty common use case. It is AutoCRUD. It has the ability to filter, to sort out of the box. We do have some scaled down as well, so if you don't want all the filtering, if you don't want all that heavy lifting done for you, you can have just a plain grid and edit yourself. But we find this is a very, very common use case, being able to sort the grid. This is the same data that I mentioned earlier from the database initializer. Everything you see right here in this front end is generated from this right here. That was really interesting. Let me show you where it is, by the way. So now this down here in Java, that's the Flow side. Here in the front end package would be the TypeScript side. Let's do this one, grid. I have 4 minutes. Let's go to the grid, which is here. All right, similar grid, but here's what I want you to look at. Let's pull this down. This again is a TypeScript function, which you've probably done that before. Here's what's relevant. Look at that signal right there, line 13, context. All right, so we got a contact, it's a signal. We're initializing it with an empty contact array, nothing crazy so far. Contact is our data model, so we have an empty array of those. Then our use effect, we're going to do something really curious. If you're a React person, something very curious. I'm saying within my use effect, I'm going to call the contact service class, which is a Java class, and call the findAll method, which is a method in my Java class. No React, no GraphQL, I'm just literally directly calling the Java class, so to speak. And then from that, I'm going to update, so whenever the value of the context updates, it's going to update the empty array, then I can populate that down here in my grid. Context value is the same context value, and that's how we populate that grid. But the most important part here is line 16. I can't emphasize this enough. This is React, hillagrid.tsx, TypeScript. And I'm calling a Java class and a Java method. How is that possible? Well, that's possible because with the Hilla framework, I have to close this up real quick. 2 minutes, doing good. Let me find my classes. I think that was the contact class, contact service. Yeah. Line 10. That annotation browser callable is magic. This is my Java class. In the Hilla application, whenever you add that annotation browser callable to a Java class, once Spring scans all of your files, it will generate on your behalf a TypeScript interface that is type safe and contains all the methods available for the front end. Everything that's in there is immediately available. Again, no REST API, GraphQL, or any other communication layer that work that you have to do for yourself. So every method here that I've written in Java, I immediately have it available on my front end. In a similar manner, if I define any model data on the back end, it's immediately available for validation with forms on the front end. You don't have to do any front end work. As long as it's done in Java, again, full stack from the back, we generate that for you from the back to the front. So with that being said, that was the code. What's left? Some new things we've had recently. I'm going to flow through these in my last minute. We've had signals added. We have Hilla and Flow together. Those two frameworks, you can now interchange them if you have need for that. We have automatic menu creation. I talked about Copilot already. Automatic flow layouts. We have components in React, so you can use flow components in a React file. Some new features in our design system, the control center I talked to you about earlier, and initiatives for next year. We have a new theme. I talked about the Lumo theme. We have a new theme coming out, the Aura theme. Many more components, full stack signals. I don't know who's doing that right now in the Java world. We have full stack signals coming out, seamless continuous and deployment, part of our control center, additional monitoring features, preview deployments, full stack AI components, and more CRUD generation options. Made it. So I am Lawrence D Codes on pretty much all platforms. Like Deion Sanders says, I'm not hard to find. So whether you do Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you are, just look at Lawrence D Codes. You'll find me. Happy to interact with you and help you out. We found this to be an amazing platform for individual Java developers as well as Java teams who need to be more productive. Thank you.